Welcome to Be Understood Branding, a podcast newsletter with brand strategy best practices for folks selling products or services or ideas with quick, actionable tips to connect more while building a successful, irresistible brand. I am Maggie, the founder of Be Understood Branding, a brand strategy company in Chicago. And welcome to my twice monthly podcast about brands, how they're shaped, and my advice about how you can build your own distinct and irresistible brand. Let's get into it. This week, I am asking and answering the question, how can your brand, and yes, you are a brand, if you sell a product, a service, or an idea, you're a brand already. So you should probably be strategic about building one. Anyway, the question is, how can your brand build resilience when everything changes so fast? The marketing platforms change so fast. The market changes so fast. So how can you build resilience, and why does resilience matter? Great question. I'd love to answer that. But first, I wanted to kind of reflect on the landscape now. So Twitter, it will never be X to me. Fuck that guy. It used to be fun. It used to be informative. It definitely is a garbage pile now. LinkedIn, interestingly, seems to be kind of clawing its way back to, I guess I would call it sort of useful. I don't know if you can hear Django snoring in the background. I hope you can't. And now there's TikTok shopping to contend with. So all of those combined kind of got me thinking, what's a brand to do? I have an answer and I'd love to share it with you. So how can your brand build resilience when market options change so quickly? You have to have heard Django do that. Ironically, brands that can build resilience in a changing market by being as true as possible to what they know to be true about their brand. So you build resilience in a changing market by continuing to be exactly yourself. Brands that, here's some alliteration for you, hone their identity and then hew to what they learned are brands that build brand trust. And since 81% of consumers make buying choices based on brand trust, that's something you should be doing. So brands that shift their personality, they change their values, they alter their brand positioning for non-strategic reasons over time, they're not as resilient because in the consumer's mind, they're viewed as less trustworthy. That's just how human brains work. I'm not saying that's great or super convenient. It's just kind of how human brains work. Now, that doesn't mean you can't change your positioning, your vibe, or your values. Of course you can, as long as it's strategic. And then you can share that strategy with the people who you love or who you want to love you, and invite them to be part of that change, maybe. So I can imagine that you might be thinking, okay, smarty pants, if this brand strategy idea is so great, then how does it help me where, rubber meets the road, boots on the ground, with me needing to create 27,000 different pieces of content for different channels all the time? Well, a brand strategy can help with that too, for the same reason that you build resilience by staying true to yourself. So here's why. In the process of building a brand strategy, the way I do it anyway, you identify specific messages that matter to your ideal clients. You identify moments where you pull out a chair for them, where you can do the equivalent of getting them a glass of water. That might be making them laugh. That might be sharing something you know about their beliefs or traditions or worldview. But those messages matter to your clients no matter the platform. So once those messages are identified in your brand strategy, you can always match the message to each channel's specific vibe without losing the impact of the message or diluting your brand. The vibe of TikTok is going to be maybe a little sillier, definitely more deeply respectful of the diverse and wonderfully diverse, and the value of that diversity, the world that we live in. I know that sentence didn't work grammatically, but I apologize, but you get the gist, right? So you could take that same message and make it playful, and then maybe if you're on YouTube, you take that message and you do 20 minutes on it. And if you're on Threads, you post a couple things about it, asking people that follow you to engage with you around that message. If you're on Clubhouse, you host an event around that message. What I'm saying is, it doesn't matter what the platform is. If you have a brand strategy, you can switch platforms literally tomorrow, and you don't have to change anything because the message stays the same. Do you know what I mean? So creating messaging for each channel isn't difficult with a brand strategy. So one way to protect your brand, to keep it resilient over time, is to have a brand strategy. Okay, we're going to finish this episode with a very quick brand strategy exercise. It's literally 2 minutes. So I'm going to ask you 2 questions. Those questions asked and answered are part of your brand strategy, and you should codify them somewhere. So here's 2 questions. If I were going to ask you, what's one thing about your brand that will never change? What would you say? What's one thing about your brand that will never change? What would you say? Pause this, I guess, and go write that down somewhere. Give yourself maybe 5 minutes to expound upon it. Don't stop the train of thought. Don't edit yourself. Just let the ideas flow. Okay. What's one thing about your brand that you will never change? Okay, that's question number 1. Now, question number 2. More interesting question, in my opinion. Why won't it change? What is so important about that thing that you'll never change it? Pause again and go write down the answer. Why? Maybe you already wrote it down, in which case, just highlight it. Now, go post that somewhere. Codify it somewhere. If you follow Carvel Digital, which you all should be, add it to your pot of gold from Karanda. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google Carvel, Karvel Digital, and pot of gold. Or go back to the email and just click the link that I put there. Because let's face it, nobody's listening to this who isn't getting my email. All right, that's it. I'll talk to you in a couple weeks. Have a great day.